On this second training mission, we will learn how to do a visual circuit landing, taxi to ramp, and shutdown, with the Saab Sk 60B of Sweden's Air Force. The mission includes the following sections: initial approach, brake circuit, landing, taxi to ramp, and shutdown, the last two being optional. The approximate mission time is 10 to 15 minutes. This training series is set on the Caucasus map, taking advantage of a fictional joint training exercise between the air forces of Sweden and Russia. Press spacebar to begin. We have paused the mission to be able to explain how this mission will unfold. We are nearing Anapa Air Base. You should be able to see it straight ahead. You will have to reduce your altitude and airspeed gradually, so that you arrive to it flying at 1,000 feet AGL and 215 knots, and on the same heading as its runway, 220 degrees. For a precise landing, you need the altimeter to be accurately set. We will contact Anapa in order to determine what is their current atmospheric pressure or QFE, and to let them know that we are inbound for landing. Press the communication key, \, to contact Anapa's air traffic control. On the communications menu select, F5, ATC, F1, Anapa, F1, inbound.
Anapa, in field, 1,
The tower
1,
will answer the
inbound.
heading and distance to its landing approach point, which we will ignore since we are
Anapa,
already at
in
that
field,
point,
1,
but it will
1.
also
Request
inform you that
navigation
Anapa's
assistance.
current QFE is 29.76 inches of mercury, and that we have been assigned runway 22. Press F12 to clear the communications menu. ATC reported the QFE using inches of mercury, but our altimeter uses hectopascals. Convert by multiplying the inches of mercury by 33.864. On this case, for 29.76 inches, the corresponding hectopascals are 1007. Turn the baro knob until the air pressure reads 1007 hectopascals. On this way. Okay, now that we have contacted Anapa and calibrated our altimeter, press spacebar to unpause and begin the approach. Move the power levers up to set between 65 to 70% RPM, and trim the aircraft to attain level flight. Use the vertical speed indicator, rather than the altimeter, to help you in assessing whether the aircraft is ascending or descending. Good, now begin to reduce speed and altitude, to reach Anapa at 215 knots and 1,000 feet. If needed, you can extend speed brakes, but be careful as there is no indication of them inside the cockpit, only the increased wind noise can tell you that they are extended. Soon, ATC will ask you to contact tower. At that point press \, and then select F1, request landing.
Enfield 1-1, cleared for visual, contact tower. Anapa, in field, 1-1, request landing. Enfield 1-1, Anapa, cleared to land, runway 22.
Do not overfly the main runway, instead head a bit to its right, over the ramp zones. This way you will be able to check if the runway is occupied or not. You are now at initials, your speed should be 215 knots, altitude 1,000 feet. Roll left into a 45 to 60 degrees of bank, and reduce speed. As you decelerate below 200 knots, lower landing gear and extend flaps to takeoff position. Add power to keep speed at no less than 160 knots. Exit the turn on a heading of 40 degrees and at 600 feet altitude. Level out the aircraft, its heading should be 40 degrees, the opposite of the runway. Keep the speed at 160 knots, altitude at 600 feet. Complete the landing checklist. Landing gear should be down. Flaps. They should be at takeoff, mid, position. Air brakes should be retracted. Taxi landing light, set to landing. Begin the turn left into the base leg, at a point slightly downwind of the landing end of the runway. Maintain 600 feet and 160 knots until you have completed the turn. Align with the runway and perform a descending approach, with a speed of 135 knots. Near the runway threshold, reduce power and speed to 115 knots. Flare just before touchdown. Touchdown. Once the nose wheel is on the ground, apply wheel brakes while keeping the aircraft aligned on the runway. Proceed forward and take the first runway exit to the right. Well done, you may now select. Press backspace to practice the taxi to ramp and the aircraft shutdown. Press spacebar if you want to end the training now. Taxi forward and then turn right onto Taxi Street M. Park your aircraft on the same spot where you started on the previous training mission. Your ground crew is waiting there. Once clear of the runway, flap handle forward to retract the flaps. Landing lights set to taxi position. Good, you are now on apron 2. Taxi to your spot and park your aircraft facing the runway, as shown on the diagram. Well done, you are now at your proper parking spot and facing the runway. Press backspace to learn the shutdown procedure for the SK-60, or press spacebar if you prefer to end the training at this point. Perform the following procedure in order to shut down your aircraft. Navigation lights set to off. Navigation switch set to off. Inverters 1 and 2 set to off. Flaps, confirm they are fully up. Fuel pumps, set both to off. Canopy, open. N2 RPM, wait until both engines have RPM at 0%. Master switch, set to off. This concludes the shutdown procedure. You have landed safely back at Anapa, taxied back to the ramp, and performed a proper aircraft shutdown. Good job, you have successfully completed this training mission. Press spacebar to exit the training.